pretty much. Welcome to another discussion in the Ancerious Group. So today the topic is going to be keeping up motivation, avoiding writer's blocks, and preventing RP stall. The individual topics we're going to look at is how to keep up motivation for RPs over a length of time, how to avoid writer's block and burnout, how to avoid RP stall and death, what methods you can use to potentially kickstart yourself, how to handle multiple projects / RP simultaneously, and how to balance RP with IRL. So the first one with how to keep up motivation for an RP over time. Well, obviously this is a very broad thing. It's not going to work for everyone, so I'll probably be asking like a few of you guys like what you do later on, like regarding these different things. But at least for me, if there's a really long RP that's sort of going on for quite a while, I personally have to keep myself motivated by like reading it over at least once a week, keeping it fresh in my mind. Like, okay, we're still on this bit, or okay, somebody's posted and this is going on. If I read something, I tend to get motivation for it because I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that, like this bit next, or I'm looking forward to the next post and writing out the next progressive point, or the like. But another good way that I find to keep motivation up for RPs is just to talk about them, just with other people. Like, you know, if I want to sort of get motivation to post for Price of Power, for example, I'll talk to any of the players that are in Price of Power and just be like, yo, so, got any cool ideas with this, or how do you think the RP is going? And we just talk about it for a bit, and it usually gets me going like, oh yeah, I'm kind of back in the mood to do that now. But either that or drawing some, well, at least for me, like drawing some little scenes for RPs usually gets me sort of in the mood. They can just be little tiny sketches, but it doesn't have to be like some grand, massive, detailed, absolute effort post piece of artwork. It can just be like a 5-minute sketch on like a random piece of paper of, two characters interacting or some ships firing at each other. It usually gets sort of you in the mood thinking about things. That, and I typically use music, so depending on what the RP is, I will have a set music track for it, or set of tracks, like a little album or playlist, and I will play that when I am in the mood to write. So for example, with Lost Lamb, I use the soundtrack from Orwell, the game. And for Unholy Rebirth, I've been using Peacekeeper 2 from Project Wingman, and like stuff like that. So I pretty much have some music for each RP. I sit down in the morning, open up Discord, sort of click on the RP chat, open up Word, and then I just kind of give the RP a read through. I put on the music that I associate with the RP, and I try to get myself into that mindset of, okay, what's happened? Read back through the RP, maybe 1 or 2 turns. Get yourself back into that frame of mind of what's going on, what do you have to respond to, get good music going to put you back in the frame of mind of what's going on in the actual RP, and then maybe even write down little notes to say, if you can't quite get the drive to post, just be like, okay, well, somebody shot me, so I need to take some damage, I need to respond to me being shot, I need to delve into this little piece of lore that is associated with this bit in the RP, and I need to add in these little extra details. And then you can maybe elaborate on those, and before you know it, you've basically got a sort of a skeletal lattice work for a good post. That's how I typically get my motivation into the sort of mindset to post to RPs, at least individual RPs. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to get into that space, but I mean, like, what do you guys do when you're trying to get into the zone to post to RPs.
Main thing that works for me is just like you said, music. Other than that, I haven't really found anything that works for me in particular. My ADHD is really what kills like RPs for me if they last really long.
Hmm.
I'll just kind of I'll get distracted by other things, or if I'm doing too many at once, that's what really fucks with me
Yeah,
more than
definitely.
anything. Where I'll be like, "Oh, sweet, I'm doing like a battleship thing, and I gotta go to like some diplomatic meeting or something," and then that just fucks me right up. Like two different themes.
One thing that works for me is to kind of write up a small thing as a starter, or to review. I guess I don't know if review would be the right word. Just go over some themes the faction is based off of, or factions the faction itself is similar to.
Hmm.
Like if you had like, I don't know, some preachy nation in there, you could review like Warhammer 40K's Imperium of Man or Covenant if you want to stretch things.
Okay, that's a really good idea. That's actually something I was going to bring up with how to um, avoid writer's block and kickstart yourself. So that's actually quite interesting that you use that for RP post motivation as well.
Yeah, it's something I do when I go for long stretches without RPing and suddenly I have no idea what I'm doing. I like to get in the mood of things by writing in the spirit of one of the factions. Like, I like the orcs from 40K, so I get in the mood for orcs or something like that, and then that usually helps.
Ah, makes sense. I think that's a really good method.
That's also something that helps me too, and it's why I had so much issues at the beginning with my faction. Is any sort of games or media that I can watch or play that is a similar theme.
Absolutely, I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good way. Anyone else got anything that they do?
Yeah, I've got one. I think this is more like akin to just good RP editing. Keep the RP like moving along. Like if you're in like a space battle and it's like you're shooting somebody and you write a post about like your ship opening fire, and then they respond, "Okay, the shields are down to 80%," and then they describe their ship shooting, and then you respond, "Okay, my shields are down to 95%." Blah blah blah. And you get that thing going where it's like 4 or 5 turns of you just writing posts about you shooting at each other and nothing has really happened. That can kill RPs for me. And there's other like elements of RPs, like when you have like characters or like scenes moving, or like some sort of transition between two sort of more interesting events, and that gets dragged out, like the classic like first contact RP where it's like you meet somebody and then you're like friggin' you gotta like fly the shuttle to their ship and get the boarding clearance and land in the hangar and meet their people and then go to their conference, and like all that kind of stuff, is to be mindful of that, and to maybe like just like discuss it OOC, like how something could happen, so that you can keep the RP like focused on what's actually interesting and what matters.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I think that's a good thing. I can definitely get behind that personally. There's nothing that I personally hate more and kills my motivation than diplomatic RPs that are essentially just "Hello, I'm X. Hello, I'm X." Blah 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 blah. Like with just nothing but like mindless talking, and it's like, okay, if it's in between a major plot point and you need it for some exposition and stuff, okay, that's fine. But if the entire RP in brackets is around like X talking to X, it just honestly just put that in a news document or something, like it's probably going to be a lot easier. Like I find it quite hard to respond to RPs like that. or RPs that just take an absolute shit ton of time. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll go with that to how to avoid a RP stall and death in that section.
Not necessarily like long RPs are necessarily bad. It's RPs where nothing is happening. You could have an RP that's 10 posts long that is completely boring because there's nothing going on. Or nothing sort of original and relevant.
Mm.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I generally agree, especially if the other partner, they reply but they don't really say anything and you don't have any like hooks to go off of their reply.
Absolutely. Alright, so the next bit is how to avoid writer's block and burnout. So the first segment of that in how to avoid writer's block, honestly, for me, the best method that I do is what him and Angel you said, is I pretty much get myself into a position where I'm like, right, I'm clearly not in the mood to write. I'm clearly not in the mood to do any sort of storytelling or writing for any sort of subject or situation. So I'm going to immerse myself kind of in that situation. So I'll watch a specific film, or I'll play a specific game, or I'll watch things to do with something, or, for example, if I want to do uh, anything to do with the Union, I'll look up like various bits and pieces to do with like big United Space nations fighting and doing whatever. If I want to do anything with EOS, I'll go back and read some of my old War Machine books about the Protectorate of Menoth, or I'll play Sins of a Solar Empire with the Advent or something, or if I want to do something with the Unnamed, I'll look up some like really eerie, crazy Cthulhu-esque alien stuff, or, immerse myself in that kind of media, I guess. And then if I'm wanting to, or if I need to post to any sort of like big battle role plays or whatever, I'll just go on YouTube and watch like Mass Effect Last Battle for Earth or fight scenes from Babylon 5 or just like any sort of space combat stuff or anything that's sort of to do with the topic at hand in the RP, just to get myself into the sort of, rhythm of like, oh yeah, ship's going boom boom, hell yeah, let's write some of that stuff, like at the end of the day, that's all sort of I need to do on that front. It's harder when you're trying to write, say, faction sheets or like actual sort of story or self-story or whatever. That can be quite hard. But again, I tend to get over writer's block by, I guess, sort of throwing myself into the deep end. So, very recently, actually, in the last few weeks, I lost my mojo for not just Ancerious, but like so much else as well. But I just did not have any drive to do anything frank, like whether it was RP or write anything for my factions or continue on the updated timeline, just anything in general, no art, whatever. However, I got into a discussion with someone about Ancerious, and when we were just discussing all of these different things, and I was going on about how we've got our own particle physics system, and how we've got lots of RP on the go, and all of our lore and the rules and everything, it just like being immersed in it again kind of made me feel like, oh, okay, maybe I do want to get back to doing stuff again. And then I went and read a load of RPs, and I went and looked at a load of the reference sheets and a load of the art reference sheets, and like just full on threw myself into the deep end. And then the next day, I pretty much sat myself down, got all the music going, watched some media and stuff, and said, right, I'm going to write some posts and I'm going to enjoy it. and I managed to do so. I didn't write all of the posts I wanted, but I managed to at least make a start. And once you've got a foot in the door, you're okay. But it's getting over that initial hurdle where you're just like, yeah, I have nothing in mind, is, for me at least, is to just full on immerse yourself. Like, get in there, shove yourself in there, like, just drown in whatever story or RP or art or whatever the hell you're trying to do. You know, reread it, rewatch it, give it a look over, talk to people about it. That's another thing as well. Like, if you talk about a subject, you're going to be more interested in it. So if you get people to say, like, oh yeah, what's your story about, or, you know, whatever, you can get yourself going from that at least, and it helps. Personally, on the other flip side of that, of if immersing yourself pretty much doesn't work, just doing drips and drabs will help, in my opinion. Like, if you've got writer's block and throwing yourself in the deep end doesn't really work, just tackle what you can on a little basis. If that means just doing, like, one reply to an RP in, like, a week, okay. That's still one more reply that, you know, you wouldn't have done otherwise. You know, just doing little drips and drabs, and then try and build it up and try and sort of use that. As I said, just get a foot in the door. Once you've got a foot in the door, you can try and reel yourself back in. But to just get over that hurdle, you've either got to drown yourself or just sort of like dip your toe in and then slowly go in. But that's how I personally deal with writer's block, is just, you know, yeet myself into the middle of it. For burnout, that's a bit harder. Normally, if I'm burnt out with something, I have to completely sever myself from it for at least a week. I know for last year, when I burnt out from Ancerious for a week, and I took that sort of like week of absence, I just had nothing to do with Ank. Like, I didn't look at the RPs, I didn't look at the chats, I didn't have anything to do with the story or anything. I just looked at my own projects and I went, right, I'm going to dedicate my time to painting some 40k, writing up the union sheet, doing my own stories, going out and about, you know, anything that isn't to do with what I'm trying to avoid being with the burnout. And then when I've sort of had that time away, to get back into it again, I either do the, like, yeeting myself into the middle of it or just dipping my toe in, because the last thing you kind of want to do is be burnt out with something, come back to it, and then immediately just go, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm just in the same position again. If you're burnt out from a project, in my opinion, it shows that you have some sort of issue with it, and that issue needs to be resolved before you can come back to it. So, for Ancerious, like, I got burnt out because I had a load of issues with some things that were handled in the group, disagreements between certain players, and people leaving and whatever, and, you know, stuff being blown out of all proportion all round. And the way that I got over that burnout was I pretty much, you know, sat down, talked to all of the people that like were involved. We all hashed everything out, agreed on everything, sorted everything, addressed the issues that were causing the problems, and then that allowed me to go, right, I can sleep easy now. You know, I don't have to think about the topic at hand and go, oh, for fuck's sake, it's that thing again. You know, that you're burnt out for a reason. Either you're putting way too much time and effort in which case, slow down, don't kill yourself over something, or you have issues with that thing and you need to resolve those issues. And the best way to do that is to just step straight out into the open and say, I'm having problems with this and I need help sorting them, or I would like to sort them, or can we sort them, and just to resolve the issues. And then once they're all resolved, you don't have that gigantic weight over whatever it is you're doing, be it RP or book writing or project planning or whatever you're doing. You know, if there's issues that haven't been resolved, they will pretty much just hang over you like a bad dream constantly, and it will just completely knock out all interest that you have in that project. So, in my opinion, yeah, so that's personally how I deal with writer's block, and also how I see getting over dealing with burnout. Again, like, does anyone have any sort of methods that they have, or anything that they deem as like a big thing for either of those?
For me personally, it's not really a solution, but it is something that causes it. Something that can drive me to, I hesitate to say it, stay away from posting is not so much not having the drive to post, but not being sure what to post.
Mm.
Something in the vein of writing yourself into a corner, I guess.
Yeah. That makes sense. That tends to be also one of the topics of like how to avoid RP stall. Is obviously if you've got this is kind of like on to the next topic, but I don't mind talking about it now. Is that if you've got a role play and you've got some players that are doing various things, and a couple of them write themselves into a position where they're kind of screwed, or they've sort of, I guess, wandered away from the focus of the RP, not for any fault maybe of their own or the GM's, just because of stuff that's happened, and they don't really have anything to respond to. People can just be like, well, I don't really know what to post, and because of that I don't really have drive for the RP, and I've got no idea how to get back on track, so I've kind of got a bit of writer's block. If you're in that situation, ever, just say in the OOC, yo, I'm kind of in this position, don't really know what to write, I don't really have any hooks that I can go with, what do I do? And just ping the GM and just be like, right, could you either maybe post a little post giving me some hooks, or give me some advice on how to, I guess get back on track, or get into a good position where I'm doing stuff again, or, maybe do a little bit of a time skip to somewhere. This kind of ties into what Jay said about the whole, like, if you're travelling somewhere, if you've just had a really exciting sort of segment of an RP where lots of stuff is happening, and there's a segment where you're travelling to a new place where there's going to be another exciting segment. In that travelling time, it's all like sort of a transition period. It is so easy to completely and utterly stall and kill an RP because there's no technical heavy direction there, and there's not always like massive hooks the players involved. So in those instances, either do a time skip, in which case, boom, you're at the next location, hey ho, we're back doing fun stuff, or try to give as many hooks as you possibly can and such. An example of that is in Lost Lamb. The party has gone from Lost Star to End of the Line, and during that time they got boarded by pirates. And then the moment the sort of like pirate segment ended and the party was free to go back to End of the Line, they had a very short bit where, they patched themselves, or they got patched up, they got repaired, everyone got some weapons together, they had a little bit of lore discussion with the sort of like NPC main character, and then I was just like, boom, you're there. You're at End of the Line. Here you go, guys. There we go. And now they're all able to go out into the next big segment, because the last thing I wanted is to have it being like, well, you've got 3 days to kill on this ship, and then everyone's like, all right, what do we do? And that will just kill the RP. So you can absolutely avoid stall by just communicating, really. Having a good direction and stuff for your roleplay, and ensuring that everyone's on the same line as that. And if you're taking part in a roleplay and you're not sure if you're on the correct course or not sure what to write, just ask. At the end of the day, we're all here to have fun, and nobody's going to turn around and say, like, no, fuck off, I'm not going to help you in the RP, yeah, that's for the how to avoid RP stall for that tangent. But back to the old bit. Does anyone have anything on avoiding writer's block and burnout that I haven't covered, or maybe they use to help themselves, or like drowning themselves in alcohol or taking extremely hard drugs.
Those are both really good options, of course.
Nice.
I enjoy fat bong hits before doing any world building.
Yeah, we can tell as
You're getting a model of physics out of it, no complaint.
Well, there you go, guys. Doing extreme amounts of drugs allows a group to have its own particle physics system. But yeah.
My biggest issue is motivation with like a faction or theme. There's nothing that I could like watch or play to get in the mood for, and that's where I struggle the most with.
Okay. So my suggestion there is that instead of like going to a media where you can watch whatever that's supposed to be sort of similar to whatever faction, to go back and actually read what you have done for said faction already. So
Yeah.
I've personally found it kind of hard lately to watch stuff and get any real feeling for the Union, because the Union's changed so much now that I'm kind of like, man, this is no longer like a conglomeration of loads of different things. It's kind of getting its own distinct stuff. And the way that I get around that is I open up some of the older works or the newer works and I just have a read. And then
Yeah, I mean,
Gone.
no, I was saying I was gonna agree with you because just me taking back that old text document I had and going through it and make sure everything was good, it just gave me the motivation rereading it to basically overhaul the tech and
Exactly.
not just be lol AI.
It's actually, this method as well is really effective. It's like a hack if you have OCD. Because if you go back and read through your own work, not only do you go like, oh, this is pretty cool, now I remember what I'm in the position of, you always go back and you reread your work and you're like, oh, well, that's changed, or well, that's not quite like that anymore, oh, I kind of mess up the grammar, or like, the explanation here, or this kind of isn't up to par, and before you know it, because you're so, like, obsessed, you've already updated the sheet and you're already writing everything for your faction again, and you're like, holy shit, I'm back in action. Like, it honestly is a hack, and it's not just for RP either. This is for like any project. If you have OCD, you could use it to your advantage to completely trump writer's block and burnout, and just get back into the thick of it immediately by just rereading old stuff and just getting so angry at your own like tiny little mistakes that you have to go back and correct it.
Well, I'm laughing because it's so true.
It is.
So true. Just you're rereading it and you're like, I'm a fucking dumbass. Why'd I put that?
Yep. It's how I've like done a load more additions to the Union sheet where I get to a bit and I'm like, well, what about this? And I'm like, oh, alright then, new section, and then I just write a whole load of stuff, like, so, yeah, I think that's one of the key things for getting over that. But, anyone else with any sort of thing on that subject?
I guess in the vein of writing stuff for your faction, you could also develop. I guess it's more. There's more material if you're newer faction or just wrote up like a new online or something. But you could develop parts of your faction that I guess are like they haven't been elaborated on. For example.
Yes. For sure. So. Another kind of example for that, going back to the Union sheet, and was I sat down because I wanted to do this big mega ultimate sheet, but I just hit a brick wall immediately because I was like, well, I've ported over all the stuff from my old sheet and I've kind of filled in the stuff that I have here. And then I got to areas like the government section and the economy, and I sat down and I actually thought to myself, shit, this actually isn't very fleshed out. I have the basic idea of like, okay, this is how it works. I have no idea how the government actually passes like any legislation. I have no idea what executive branches my government has doing anything. I've got no idea how any of these different government branches interact with each other to actually get anything done. And I just sat there and was like, shit, I better research this. And I got Vic and Sakura here to help me with the judicial system and the government system and the economic system. And the moment they started helping me flesh stuff out, I was like, oh shit, that ties into here, that ties into this, oh my god, that fits here, that can link in with the military, that can link into the culture, or that can link into society, and that links in with established law and history that I have had for 10 years or so. And it just, once you've got over that initial bit of like, okay, I'm going to attack this specific area of my faction that I've never really thought of before. Once you get over the initial, how am I going to lay this out? Or maybe I'll add a few details. Once the details start coming, your lore will start piecing itself together, and you'll just have this like endless train of thought of like, oh, that does that, oh, that ties into that, and that just makes you type more and write more and write more, and you can just like get a load of stuff done in a really short order. I guess that the theme there is that find the missing puzzle piece. If you can find a missing puzzle piece in your work, or your like setting, or your writing, or your RP, that it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to force yourself to do it. As long as you find that missing puzzle piece that makes a load of things slot together, you could just ride that wave onto like a load of different things. And I think Pickle, you had that very recently.
For what? Sorry?
The Dirge.
Oh, yeah. Because Victor just pinged me and said, Dirge, Murdiff, Deep Lore, when? And I'm like, I don't know. So I started just bugging Victor and Myrick, and then I've pretty much, at this point, I have a completely new concept for the faction. Like, I'm going to go in and rewrite the history and, like, the whole technology section to better fit the picture.
Mm.
And that just basically came from one question, like, hey, what about this? And, running with it and getting a lot of feedback and ideas from the rest of the group.
For sure. As such, if you see a topic in World Building Weekly and you think, I haven't really thought about that, just go into GenDev and say, well, here's my faction, here's my theme. How would this fit? Have you got any funky ideas? And people will probably suggest various bits and bobs. And you can just use that to sort of, plug a few gaps. If it isn't the holy grail missing puzzle piece you've been looking for, that's no problem. At least you've got a little bit of work done, maybe got some cool new ideas for one segment or a couple segments of your faction. If you're ever thinking to yourself, like, oh, what's this like? And you just want help with it, just ask. We'll throw some funky ideas your direction, and it's up to you if you want to use them or change them or whichever. But I think that covers sort of how to avoid writer's block and burnout pretty well overall. Use other people around you, more or less. Others are fonts of knowledge, or just ask them, hey, can you ask me questions about my faction? And then people will do so, and you've got to actually think and put yourself back into the zone again. But the next thing is how to avoid RP stall and death. Well, we already had that little bit of how to get over things if you're not quite sure what you're supposed to do, or the RP's gone off the rails a bit. Another thing, just keep it going. There's nothing more that will kill an RP as if people just stop posting over a large period. I ran an RP called Rogue God, and like 4 of the 5 people just stopped posting entirely for a year. And by the time we actually got that RP back on track, I had completely and utterly forgotten the plot. I had completely and utterly forgotten everything that I was going to be doing that post and future posts, and I was so drained and like, I don't really care at this point, that I practically wrapped it up like 4 turns after. Don't harass people to post, but just be like, every week, just be like, yo, you still good? Like, obviously if somebody's put up an inactivity notice and said, hey, I'm dealing with IRL, or I can't post at the moment because of this, don't harass them, but just sort of keep on top of it and just be like, okay, you know, as long as we're still hoping for this RP to go forward, it's all good. The whole thing of keeping a tight focus of where the RP is supposed to be going is another thing. Avoiding any metagaming, power playing, etc. I mean, this is kind of a topic that we've already touched on before, of like how to keep RPs alive and how to GM and be a player in a good capacity. So I'm not going to touch on this segment too much, but as we said, use media to get yourself in the zone. You know, maybe give people music. I haven't seen that done too much, but it could actually be a really good idea when, say if you're the GM or you're a player, you write your post up and you're listening to a piece of music that, you know, it really gets you into the zone. You know, maybe it's some fast fight music and you've got a couple characters that are fighting a load of dudes in a room. Maybe post it and just be like, this was the music that I wrote my post to, and the other person will be like, alright, I'll check it out. And then they listen to it and they're like, yeah, I can feel this. And they will then write a post, hopefully, that will, you know, be inspired by that music, or, you know, anything to help get people into the zone. Or just be like, hey, you know, this space battle scene reminds me of what's going on in this RP, and post a link to whatever media you're watching, you know. I'd definitely appreciate it if somebody posted a space battle scene from something and I watched it and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. That reminds me, I'll get on that immediately, you know. So you can kind of use the same methods that you use yourself to get motivation to post, but just share them with other people. What's the worst that can happen? Like, you know, share My Little Pony theme shot song and completely kill the RP, but, you know, hey ho.
You shouldn't have gave me an idea, Myrick. I'm doing it.
How to kill an RP 101. But yeah, I mean, just help each other out at the end of the day. You know, we're a community, we like endorsing community-driven stuff. If you're gonna have some cool things that get you into the zone, feel free to share it with other people. That's all I can really say on that regard. Anyone else?
Can our next talk be about how to kill an RP?
Oh, don't worry. I know exactly how to do that. Oh, where are we talking? Oh, there we go. Oh, shit, sorry. I didn't realise that. Yeah, wrong chat. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think we need to do that a bit more here, because there's so many players in this server who listen to awesome music when they're writing posts, but nobody ever shares that music in the actual, like, OOC chat. I think we need to do that. I honestly think that we need to do that here more. I'm going to try and start doing that personally. I think that's something that I'm going to have to improve, but yeah. I think we can work on that. Now that various RPs are on the go. I've got to find some good tunes for Oceans of Turmoil and Far Reach. But also as well, kind of a little bit of a tangent, when I'm motivating myself to write non-roleplay moments, like faction sheets, I personally actually find it quite hard to write in-depth write-ups for like sheets and that if the music has lyrics. Don't know why, never had that problem in the past, but I only just realised I had that problem about 2 years ago. It just distracts me to all hell now. I find that you can find good ambience If you can get some
I
good ambience, it helps.
I do agree with that. I don't know what it is, but it's just like the lyrics distract me from being able to type. So
Yes.
I listen to the lyrics and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm not typing. You need instrumentals.
It's like I can't write RP posts or anything while I'm on voice. I can I could do art, no problem, when talking to other people on voice chat. I cannot write anything while I'm doing like voice chat. But good ambient stuff is like is top tier when I'm doing that sort of thing. Another cool hack as well that I've found: if you are in a battle roleplay, yeah, like fleet battle, ground battle, character battle, whatever, doesn't matter, and you're like, I'm not sure if I have a thing to encapsulate here. Here's what you do. You open multiple YouTube tabs, okay? You get one main song that you really think is awesome. Yeah? Like some, I don't know, Two Steps from Hell song or whatever, okay? You then get battle ambience on another tab. Jets flying over, say this is like a ground battle with like explosions in the background. You get like an air raid siren and like gunfire and like tanks and stuff, yeah? Play those, turn down the volume a bit, play those all at the same time on top of the music, and it puts you straight into the zone of like, you got epic music, you got gunshots and missiles and shit flying overhead. It's how I personally write massive like 5-page posts to martyrs, because that shit usually takes me like half a day. So I just rack up the ambience altogether, rack up the epic music, and just play it over each other, and just put myself straight into the combat zone. So that's a hack with music and ambience that I discovered a while back.
I never even thought about that. It's actually a really good idea.
I accidentally found it when I was listening to an ambience once, and I forgot to close the tab that I was using for another song, and I was like, holy shit, this goes together really well. And haven't looked back since. So, next bit is what methods can you use to kickstart yourself? So, I guess this kind of falls into the other ones. So, music can help you kickstart yourself. Rereading old posts and old RP, or just rereading the RP itself, can get you back into the zone. Rereading old works can get you back into the zone, especially if you have OCD. Talking to other people about the subject that you are involved in or trying to work on again is a surefire way to get into the zone, because it forces you to think about the subject, and once you start thinking about the subject, your mind tends to elaborate and wonder, and then those are the things that you want it to do, because then it just kickstarts into creativity and actual working on the subject. Yeah, just general interaction and immersing yourself. I mean, I talked to Lucas. Obviously came back after his hiatus, and he said that, I'm not sure how to sort of get myself back in. And I told him, I said, just throw yourself in, reply to all the RPs that you got to do, think and brainstorm, and put in the chat some potential topics that you're interested in or you want help with. And even as he was doing that, we were talking on voice, and we came up with a funky way to incorporate a sort of, I guess, a meme idea that he had, and turn it into an actual, like, viable, legitimate story that predominantly fits into what he was trying to go for anyway. And because of that, he was just like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And then the next day he replied to a load of RPs, and now he's sort of, in the zone where he can do posts and get into the sort of spirit of writing again. So, using other people to help kickstart yourself is possibly one of the best methods, in my view. as I said, like, Goose, now that you're here, actually, when I was talking to you and Drac about Ancerious, that actually kicked me into getting a sort of bit of my mojo back, and I replied to some RPs the next day, and I used that as a stepping point to throw myself back in to actually do things. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much how I would go about kicking myself together. That, and if you live with another half or another person, just get them to physically harass you every day, you know? That also works. I've told Sakura here plenty of times, I'm going to be replying to RPs or doing this today. Make sure I do it. Usually works. So yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a repeat on rehash on the same subjects, but it's alright. The next bit is how to handle multiple projects and RPs simultaneously. This is the harder one, because, again, it completely depends on the person. Personally, I don't. I fail to do so. I have a huge to-do list, and every day I look at it, I stray further from God. But personally, the best method... There's two methods you can go about it. You can either force yourself into a strict timeline, or like timetable, where you go, okay, Monday and Tuesday I have work, and I'm just going to work, and I'm going to come home, and I'm just going to sit down and rest. And then Wednesday and Thursday I'm going to write posts for Ancerious. And then, Friday and Saturday I'm going to write some things for my own project. And then Sunday, I'm just going to take a day for myself and rest, or whatever. Like something akin to that, where you divvy up your week or your time and you go, right, this is dedicated to this, this is dedicated to this. The obvious problem with that is that if you don't feel like doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing on the day, it could kind of throw the whole thing out of balance. So if you're going to do a timetable, in my view, don't be too strict about it, because if I get up in the morning and I said, I'm going to post 5 RPs today, guys, for Ancerious, but I wake up that morning and I'm like, I really feel like doing some art today, or I really feel like doing some Union Sheet today, I'm not going to reply to those posts, because I'm not going to force creativity into another avenue of approach, if that makes sense. So if I feel like actually doing some artwork, I'm not just going to go and type up some RPs. That's not personally how it works. I have to be in the right frame of mind to do something. So if there's a difference in your day when you wake up and you feel like you want to do something different, don't waste it. Don't waste that on forcing whatever thing you're supposed to be doing. Use the inspiration and creativity that you have to do that different thing and write it. Write it for as far as it goes. Even if it's just like, okay, I feel like doing some art, and then you only do art for a few hours, and then you're like, I'm not really feeling like doing some art anymore. You have used that to do some art for 2 hours or whatever. That's better than using that drive and forcing yourself to reply to those 5 RPs, where because you're not really in the right frame of mind, you might miss a few things in the posts, or just write substandard posts because you don't really want to do it, or just don't even write at all because you're just like, I just don't feel it today, So if you're going to timetable, be flexible and don't waste inspiration for certain other things on days that you're not supposed to be doing it. The other way of doing it is just do things as and when they come to you, and then just completely focus on things that need to be done sooner rather than later. That's kind of the method that I use, where I just wake up, I plan like, alright, tomorrow I'm just going to do some RPs, I guess, and then I wake up and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to do art today, or whatever. If there's a project that requires immediate attention, like, oh shit, I've got a commission, or there's this RP that I've been putting off for God knows how long, I will always try to make some time to do those, even if I'm not really in the frame of mind to do it, although I will do everything that I can to put myself in that frame of mind, using music, talking to people, whatever. But yeah, just try to divide your time appropriate to the scale of what you're doing, and use inspiration for each of those multiple projects or RPs as and when they come. Obviously, it's kind of hard to use inspiration for specific RPs if the people haven't posted to them. So if you're ever in that sort of frame of mind, ping the people and just aggressively re-at them until they post, which is what I tend to do. So that's how I handle multiple projects. Just like a flaming disaster, really. I'm not the best person to really be discussing how to handle multiple projects, but, you know, having 6 nations and Ancerious and Euphorion and everything else, but hey-ho. Anyone else have any better ideas on how to handle multiple things at once? Oh god, you're all as unorganised as I am.
No.
Well, rip. Yeah, I honestly think the best method is to just be kind of loose about it. You
I
know,
kind of just have to kick myself in the ass to go do it because I have a really bad problem with procrastination.
same.
Where, like, even if I want to do it, I'll just kind of be like, I'll do it tomorrow. And
You know,
then I don't do it the next day.
I found a really weird brain hack with that. Is if you have something that is like immediately like mega pressing, where you've got something that needs to be done within a couple days, and you're sitting there like, fuck, I got something that needs to be done in a couple days, and I need to do it. You sit there forcing yourself to come to try and like do the thing, and it always means that you do it subpar. In my experience, I get around that by completely and utterly ignoring said urgent thing, but keep it in your mind. So, like, okay, I've got this thing that needs to be in by Friday. It's currently Tuesday, but I'm not going to kill myself or force it. So I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to read the subject of whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to kind of immerse myself in it a little bit. Today, you know, like, say, you know, it's currently 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to immerse myself a little bit in it tonight. Then, when I go to bed, because I've got so much rapid anxiety and, you know, like, my brain just doesn't switch off, because I've introduced the subtle hint of delving into whatever I'm supposed to be doing, my brain will just sit there and just tick over thinking about that specific subject. Now, when I get up in the morning, I'm not going to immediately rush to do the thing. I'm going to think about it some more. So if it's like an assignment, even if it's like an assignment for college, you know, read the subject or like read the assignment or whatever the night before. Go to bed on it, think it over. Get up in the morning, do whatever you would normally do. Again, bring it up on screen, have another read through it. Get yourself established. Does it require some research? Maybe dabble in a bit of research. You don't have to go finding references out your ass. Just have a little bit of a read. Drip feed yourself and don't worry about the impending deadline. Just drip feed it. And because, well, I mean, it works for me because my mind is an absolute mess, but if I, like, nudge my mind enough to be like, yo, there's this thing that we need to do, my mind will then be like, okay, well, I've had a few days to think about it, and I'm now in the kind of, like, frame of mind where, oh, let's just get it done. And I kind of have a little bit of drive to, yeah, let's write this. Again, if you don't have the full drive to do so, write as much of it as you feel comfortable with, then step away from it immediately. Do not try to fret over it for hours and hours on end. So if I, like, for example, for D&D session writing on Sundays, if I wake up on a Thursday morning after I've sort of drip fed myself a little bit, and I write for 2 hours, and then I'm like, yeah, that's it for today, I leave it. I don't try to like sit there and keep it open on my computer and try to add to it and force myself, because it just doesn't work. I then just come back to it tomorrow or later in the day when I have some inspiration. So that's kind of a little hack. Don't know if it's going to work for you. Don't know if it's going to work for anyone. Kind of works for me. It's how I got through college. Like, didn't work sometimes, but don't try to code and write up and test the whole database within 3 hours, kids. But yeah, that's what I suggest. And the last topic is how to balance RP with IRL. So, flat out, the first thing I'm going to say is IRL always comes first. Doesn't matter what's going on in RP. Doesn't matter if you desperately try to, like, you desperately need to post to an RP. If you're doing something IRL that is beneficial for, college or work or your love life or your social life or just your mental health, do that first, for fuck's sake. Don't ruin IRL for RP stuff. RP is a great escape, but RP isn't real. Your IRL is, and you need to look after yourself and take care of yourself first. So, if you've got stuff going on, make sure that you've got an inactivity notice. Make sure you tell the people. Just be like, hey, I'm not actually going to be doing this thing today. Communicate. Makes everyone feel a lot better. But always put IRL first. Good way to do it is, I guess this is kind of like the loose timetable thing. Give yourself days where you just focus on you. Like, when me and Sakura are around together, I pretty much go, alright, Monday I'm going to reply to a load of RPs, or try to at least, and then Tuesday and Wednesday I'm just going to spend time with her, and I'm just going to ignore the group. And I do, and I just switch off and, go and spend time with my girlfriend, and go and enjoy myself, or, I'm going to have a day out today, or whatever, just sort of plan around, not a timetable, but give yourself ample time for IRL just to relax or whatever. A good method that I found is that if you've had a day where you've been really heavily invested into RP, where you've replied to a load of posts and you've written up a load of sheets and you've talked about a load of concepts, it's really helpful to just have a day where you just sort of relax, like just watch some YouTube videos, just do some gaming, like go to work or go to college or school or whatever, and then just come home and just chill. Like, okay, interact a bit on the server or the RP that you're doing or whatever, but just don't try to force a load of work in sort of all at once, It's a hobby. Treat it as such. I know that there are some people who treat roleplay like it's a way of life, but at the end of the day, it's a hobby. We're all here to have fun.
But my spacemen.
Yeah, I know, but my spacemen. But, unfortunately, spacemen ain't quite real just yet. So, yeah, always put IRL first. Always take the time to just relax and rest and, have a bit of a step away from the group. Breaks, I cannot stress this enough. Everyone gets to a point where they're just like, I cannot look at this any longer. Again, it can be a burnout, but, sometimes you just wake up in the morning and you just look at it and you just go, oh, no, and just walk away. If you ever feel like that, just walk away, put up an inactivity notice saying like, hey, I'm taking a few days just to do whatever. Just enjoy yourself, relax, spend time with the family, spend time with your girlfriend or a significant other, work on other projects if you want to, or just chill. There's no, you're not contractually obliged to give your heart and actually that is a lie. It is in the rules, I'm afraid, to contractually give your heart and soul to Ancerious. It's size 1 white fine print, but yeah, you're not contractually obliged to just give everything over. So yeah, just enjoy
Except your soul.
yourself. Yeah, accept your soul. I just thought
One
I'll do this
one thing
casual
I
thing.
do find that helps though is when you do like you said, take a break, but that gives you time to digest what you've read.
Definitely.
Like someone makes a big reply, and instead of just replying right away, you have like a day or two to actually think about it quite thoroughly as you're doing other stuff.
Absolutely. I also really agree with that in the respect of if you're in a really tense RP, and it's kind of not the case anymore, but in Ancerios' past we have had some kind of, I guess, player versus player RPs, which either were not intended to be but went that way because of player action, or were intended to be and it's actually a conflict where posts or actions have been undertaken and the other player is like immediately kind of responded, but in a way that they're obviously angry about it. They're annoyed of what's happened in context, and you can tell, and it does piss people off. I mean, spacemen may be imaginary spacemen, but at the end of the day, you are putting effort into RP. You are putting your time and effort into your creations. I can understand when some things go wrong, when people get angry, blah blah blah. It does make sense. Even I get annoyed sometimes when I have an RP and it gets derailed by somebody doing something stupid, and I go, "Oh, for fuck's sake! I put hours into this, and now it's just getting thrown out the window." If that happens, either walk away, which is with IRL and RP, it's not worth getting stressed about in RP. If an RP is causing you to get stressed because of some actions or get angry or whatever, just close Discord or whatever thing that you're using, get some music out, or start playing a game, or do something else. Just say, you don't have to just disappear, just say, look, kind of in a shitty mood at the moment, don't worry, I'm just going to go for an hour or two, or whatever, or however long that you want to do so. Chill, come back to it later, when you're in a better frame of mind, and then say, right, let's get this sorted. As Goose says, get a third party in if you need to. Get everything resolved in a calmer state of mind where everyone's feeling better and hash it out. Don't, if you're ever stressed or if you're ever doing RP stuff and you're stressed because of IRL things like a loved one has passed away or just something even minor like shit crap at work or you're having a hard time, you've got multiple assignments, don't feel like you have to do stuff. Take a step back. There's no point in being stressed in RP. Everyone's there to have fun and to cooperatively write. And if somebody is in a bad mood, it always reflects on their posts in character and it always reflects on how they talk out of character. There's nothing worse than, and it happens often and it happens to all of us, there's nothing worse when you're in a shit mood because you've had a shit day, you get on Ancerios, you start talking in the main chat and somebody makes a meme or somebody memes you. Now, that person has no intention of pissing you off, they have no intention of upsetting you, and they have no intention of making your day worse. They're just making a meme for the sake of making a meme or having a laugh, yeah? And they expect you to laugh with them, but you feel like they're laughing at you, you get annoyed, you're not in the mood for it, and you lash out, or you just tell them, like, fuck off or whatever. If you're in that frame of mind, it's not worth getting involved in such situations. Just take the day off, go and enjoy yourself, just chill out, put some music on, play some games, watch some films, have some nice food, buy yourself takeout or something nice, treat yourself, and just chill. Being heated never helps anyone. Definitely doesn't help any project that you're in. If you're in a shit frame of mind and you're trying to work on an RP or a project, doesn't matter, it's not going to help. just walk away, relax, get some other people in to help you if you need be, come at it again from a clear point of view. I can guarantee you the amount of goddamn times I've been in a shit mood, I've seen something in an RP, I've gone ballistic, everyone's like, Myrick, you're being retarded. I'm just like, no, I'm not, blah, 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 blah. I come back in the morning or a couple of hours later and I'm like, I was being retarded, wasn't I? Because I was in a shit mood and I wasn't really, looking at it from the right angle. So yeah, IRL always comes first. Don't let RP massively affect IRL. And try not to let IRL massively affect RP either. I know it's quite hard to differentiate the two when you're in a shit mood or whatever. That's completely understandable. You're never ever going to be completely and utterly perfect in it. I'm not, and I've been doing this for God knows how long. And, I've had stuff like that affect the group quite heavily, when I've been in a shit frame of mind. But yeah, just try to separate the two. Know that people in RP groups, well, at least for Ancerious, I can't guarantee elsewhere, are not out to get you. They're not out to try and attack you or take the piss or destroy your stuff in character. They're there just having a laugh or whatever, or there's memes abounding. Just take a step away. Honestly, it's for the best. And I know when some people are in bad moods, they latch on and it stews or whatever. Well, try to do whatever you can to step away from the conversation. There's definitely people who like to latch onto a conversation if it's heated and keep going and keep going and keep going, digging themselves a deeper hole, making the situation worse, but they think that they want to get it resolved right now. And it, the biggest example we possibly have is a guy called Surdy. He, nice guy, but stuff was miscommunicated and missaid, and shit got blown out of all proportion because bad moods were involved. So yeah, not worth. IRL comes first. Take time for yourself. Don't let RP consume your body and soul, but, understandable if it does. And just chill and don't let things massively derail you. So that's pretty much that subject from me. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything there, but
TLDR, only play with my spaceman if you're not in a shit mood.
yeah, absolutely. Because I can tell you now, if you're in a shit mood and you get into a shit state of mind and it leads to problems with another player, that usually spirals. Because the other person will be shit with you, and then you will be shit with them, and it will keep fucking going, and then it will lead down the endless rabbit hole of OOC decisions starting to affect in-character decisions, and then you want to start invading them or fucking around with them in character, and that's when stuff gets bad, very bad, and that's when the admins start getting involved and start telling you, no, stop.
And that's when the admins start memeing on you in public ban list.
Yeah. Now, I have experienced such before. I'm not gonna say that I'm a paragon of perfection. I've had that before, and I will totally hold my hands up to it. And I will say that some of the stuff that I've done in the past in regards to being angry with particular people and fucking with them in character has not been great. It got very much pointed out to me at the time, and I then immediately reeled back in. But it did blur the line. The problem that I had was that in character it did make sense for a lot of the stuff to happen, but also I didn't like the guy, and that kind of had a very blurred line, and it led to the big invasion and him getting his faction steamrolled, which again made total sense in character. However, some of the aspects of other people who got involved and other factions that got involved probably shouldn't have been involved, and it was just me saying yes, probably for the whole thing of the guy should get fucked. But yeah, nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I mean, you know, I've got my own issues, but it's always best to identify those and sit down and just be like, right, I'm going to sort this out. And if you're ever in a situation where you're extremely stressed IRL and you're stressed with another player and shit's going down, definitely get a third party involved and try and work it out as well. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in a group where you feel like people don't like you or you don't like other people, because it's not going to end well. You know, try to resolve the issue. That's the sort of thing at the end of the day. If you've got a problem IRL, try to resolve the issue IRL. If you've got a problem in RP, try to resolve the issue in RP. But being in a shit mood helps no one.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's I was kind of having a rough time of it at work, and last year, and then, you know, the whole thing with the memes and Lucas, you know, I lost my shit.
You did.
And then I came back and I was like, oh yeah, I was being an asshole.
The key there is to identify that you've done so. If you have such moments, yeah, if you are in a shit state and stuff goes south and you cause a bit of a scene, or you make yourself look like an idiot, or you act like a complete dick, as long as you come back and you publicly hold your hands up and you go, I was in a shit place because of this, I apologise, I was a complete and utter idiot, you know, I didn't mean anything I said, I'm sorry guys. People are going to be like, no problem, we understand. It's when you don't do that and you basically act maybe high and mighty, or you're like, well, you know, I'm not going to apologise because I'm proud of myself, or, you know, you have a bit of an ego or whatever, which is fine, it happens, but it's when that starts building and building and building that people start thinking, well, he's a bit of a cunt, isn't he? Let's face it, like, this person, like, is clearly in a state where he thinks he's better than us, yet he's the one who's constantly spurging out or having all of these issues, and he's not apologising or, like, trying to resolve any of these things. So, yeah, it's that thing of, yeah, exactly, like, you know, Lucas had a shit time IRL, and he came back, he apologised. All good. That's all that it takes. I had a shit time. I fucking exactly the same time as well. Like, you know, I spoke out in chat and I was like, you know, fuck all, you're whatever. And, you know, I came back and I was like, I'm sorry guys, you know, I've had my 1 week break. I apologise. Like, it all gets to us, and that is the key. If it ever gets to that point, try to resolve it or walk away, take a break. Again, what we said with burnouts, identify the problem, try to solve the problem, and then immerse yourself back in again. That's what it comes down to. You know, again, we're not perfect.
It's my personal philosophy that everyone and everyone in the world is a retard, me
Absolutely.
included. And if you don't acknowledge that, you're an even bigger retard.
Yeah, you know what? That is actually a good point, Lefty. It is a side effect of the fact that we put so much effort into Ank. You know, the fact that on average, you know, we put more in.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I will admit, yeah, it does, but to some of the extent that at least quite a few of the players here have gone really above and beyond to flesh out some of the setting and such. It's completely understandable that they have burnout or whatnot.
So sometimes we burn out, sometimes we just flip out, you know. It happens. But the important point.
Well, you're kind of dying, Lefty. Rippity pippity. But yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying, and yeah, I agree. Like, if it's more inclined to happen to people who are putting way more in. You know, like, I won't lie, I'm kind of amazed that I haven't had more burnouts with this group, but yeah, it's pretty much the case of, oh, Lefty's died.
Yep.
Yeah,
Casual self-flex.
yeah, it's kind of the thing of, it gets to everyone. It really does. Everything does. Especially now. Especially with COVID happening, everyone being kept indoors, you know, not being able to go to work, not being able to see your friends, not being able to see your family, you know, shit going down. It's fucking depressing. And, you know, online these days, definitely now and last year, it, to some extent, it actually becomes some people's lives. It's become mine. I've got nothing else to do. What the hell am I going to do instead of like doing stuff for Ancerious or my own writing? I can't go see my girlfriend. I can't go see my friends. I can't go play 40k at the local group. I can't go to work. I can't do anything. Like, it's kind of my life now, and that's what got to me in 2020. You know, I had a breakdown at the very end of the year, but it just all piled up, and I can feel it piling up again, very slowly. But I know that it's not anything to do with like any bad stuff in Ancerious. It's just the fact that I'm frustrated that I'm kind of forced to put so much effort into the group purely because I have nothing else. And while that doesn't lessen the quality of work that I put into the group, and it doesn't make me think any less of what I put into the group, it's frustrating to know that. And it's probably frustrating for many other people as well. And in these trying times, it is the case of, you know, if you have nothing else, it is especially important to know when you are at your limit or when you are too deep, so to say. And it is very important to step away and have some days where you go, right, I'm just going to go for a walk today. Kind of hard if you live in a city, but, you know, or I'm going to do something else today. Like, you know, tomorrow, me and my dad are going shopping, and I intend to do nothing to do with Ancerious for the whole day, because it's probably going to time going out and doing stuff, and I'll just use it to rest for the rest of the day, you know? And then Thursday I can come back and I can do some stuff. So, especially important in these current times when online is the main focus.
Do you mind if I say something?
Yeah, go for it, Blue.
What? Who? What? When?
Thank you.
Do you mind if I say something?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if it's already been said, but like sometimes an RP is just it's not set out to work, and I think it's important to know when to recognize that. Like, it might be because it hasn't got a very good premise to it, or you know, people have just lost it's just lost like the momentum and interest in it because it's reached a dead end or something. That's not to say that, you know, if people have just like lost interest because they've gone on hiatus or whatever, that means just cancel it. But if it's naturally going to be inhibited or like it's failed, sometimes continuing that, it can just drive your like willingness to like approach the entire sort of the entire universe entirely. It can drive you away from that because it gives you a sour like taste in your mouth, if you get what I mean. If you're stuck with like a bunch of RPs that are just like boring first contacts that don't have any purpose to them other than say, yep, hi, and it's like every post is just like one sentence and it takes 3 months for it to come around and you're really hating it. Sometimes it might be just better to take a step back and say, either we have to reconsider how this RP is going to be approached, or I think we should just cancel it out now, because otherwise you're not it's going to go nowhere, and you're not going to want to contribute to anything, because it helps make you feel like RPing as a whole isn't interesting to you anymore.
That is actually extremely good, and we did touch on that a little bit earlier, but I think that your bit kind of expands even more with on the RP stall and dead thing. Night, Dad. Definitely on the side of if you are in an RP and it's stalled or you're not interested in it, and you come around, and every time you come around to like post to RPs, and you think to yourself, oh, I've got to post to that RP, it ruins everything. Doesn't just ruin that one RP, it ruins everything. But the instance that I gave earlier was about Rogue God, and I know that I complained to you about that one, Blue, at one point. And it really is the case of if you have RPs sitting on the side that aren't being touched, or you just don't want to reply to, every time you go to reply to any of the other RPs, you just see them there like a dark cloud hanging over you, and it drains you. It really does. That's why I had that massive spat last year where I brought up the fact that, like, guys, I'm in 25 RPs and like 10 of them are stalled or just not going anywhere, and I want to end that. I just want to yeet them, you know? It drains me, it completely destroys my will to write, and, you know, I have managed to get all of them down now, and now I'm only in RPs where I'm having fun and interested, and that's fantastic, and it should be the same for everyone else as well. So I completely and utterly agree with you. And it shouldn't be just the fact that if RPs are dead or stalled either. And this kind of links into what I was saying about with keeping yourself not stressed. If you are in an RP with someone who is, let's just say, not great, or is actively being a detriment to the RP and you, or you are not enjoying RPing with in the slightest, don't do so. You are not obliged to RP with anyone. If you are being forced into a situation where you have to RP with someone that you don't like and don't get on with, and that you haven't been able to rectify or resolve anything, or you have to RP in an RP with someone that you don't like RPing with because they're either a extremely slow poster, or they are not exactly, let's just say, nice with what they write, like, you know, they're kind of like out to get you, or if they're godboarding or power playing or metagaming, or they're just ignoring all of your plot hooks, or they're just being a dick, just turn around and say, I'm not doing this. We can wrap up this RP, or I'm going to wrap up my character being involved, and I'm just going to pull out. Because it is not worth putting yourself into situations with poor RPers, or shit RP situations, or just shit people in general. It drags you down and really destroys your will to do whatever. And it can ruin everything. You know, I had, again, this was a couple of years ago, I had a load of RPs that I was really enjoying, and then one RP with someone who I really actively despised, to be perfectly honest with you. I really didn't like him. I fucking hated the dude. And at the end of the day, every time I came to post that RP, I'd put it off for weeks. And that's not like me. Everyone who knows me knows that I reply pretty quickly, at least every couple of days. But with him, I just didn't. And because of that, it actually bled over into my other RPs. And I just became disinterested. And it's not worth it. If coming to post to RPs is making you down, disinterested, or stressed, you need to evaluate how you can either wrap up those RPs, pull out of those RPs, or resolve the issues around those RPs, or projects, or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be about roleplay. So, really, really good point there, Blue. Anything else at all? Can be on anything at this point. We're kind of at the end and whatnot.
I don't think so.
Excellente. Well, now that we've established that everyone's contractually obliged to give me their soul, and that I'm definitely going to make you all stressed and horribly upset with RP, I think we'll end it there then. So thank you for all for coming, and I hope that that helps you out. So
Bye,
Night at it.
Rick.
bye guys.
Night at